Hello, this is Christine. I am with A Naturally Balanced Dog. I am the food specialist there. And today our topic is going to be about the 4 different types of separation anxiety for dogs. And we're going to talk about how we could help them through natural alternatives. And my guest tonight is Nancy and Amy from Tallgrass Animal Acupressure Institute. And so welcome, Amy, Nancy. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is really exciting. So one of the things as when we were kind of talking about doing this together was when you came up with this idea of what we wanted to discuss for tonight. I think it was perfect, particularly because in this day and age, after COVID, I think that overall, the dog community has definitely seen an increase in separation anxiety. So I think this is great opportunity for people to learn something new on how they can help their dogs. And so with that, what we're going to do is, Amy and Nancy, if you could just introduce yourself, what it is that you do in your business, and we'll go from there.
I'm Nancy Zadanis, and I've been working with acupressure in animals since 1990. And over the course of the years, we've developed and written several books, one for acupressure for horses, one for dogs, and one for cats. In addition to that, we have developed an online training program as well as hands-on programs where we work with people to show them the best ways to use acupressure for their animals and the ins and outs of traditional Chinese medicine.
Yeah. Of which I have the one for dogs and of course all the charts. And so how I came to meet Amy and Nancy, actually, I believe it was in 2017, I became a practitioner of acupressure through Tallgrass. And that's where I met the both of you and have used that in my practices since. I think one of the greatest things was how to evaluate dog. It not only helps me for a naturally balanced dog, but also in my dog training business in how to be effective in evaluating from a health perspective. So I think that was one of the greatest takeaways for me. And so, as you said, you guys wrote a book, which if anybody, I'm sure you can get it off of Amazon or probably off your website, right?
Definitely.
And so the website is animalacupressure.com. It's up on the screen there. And so you guys could visit their website and kind of check out some of the supplies they have. So they have the books, I'm sure you have the charts and so forth. And so let's get started. So for those who are not really familiar with traditional Chinese medicine, can you give us just a brief overview of exactly, how that interacts?
Well, Chinese medicine is traditional medicine. It goes back thousands of years, and it really works with how the animal functions within its environment. What we're looking at is how healthy are they within their environment, and is the environment itself healthy for the dog? So when we're looking at it, we're looking not just the energy of the dog's body, but we're looking at everything that it influences the health, including nutrition, including behaviors. And that's what brought us to thinking very thoroughly, or more thoroughly, I should say, about the separation anxiety, which has become a major issue given the pandemic. And we're really trying to help people resolve it. There are many different resources, and one is acupressure and acupressure massage. But there's also behaviorists and trainers and who help work with that. And so if we all work together, then the dog is going to have the best outcome. And that's really what we're after with Chinese medicine. what we're doing with ancient medicine is seeing how we go to the root of what's going on, not just what looks like it's going on. We want to see. So in Chinese medicine, there are different, we look at the organ systems and they reflect, especially emotions, they reflect the kind of dog that is responding. So we can kind of detect from their behavior, from how they're functioning at that time, where the root is related to the kind of separation anxiety. Every dog's different, like every human's different. We're all going to respond differently, and we're all going to act differently. So it could be the same exact stimuli, which is the person who protects them, the person who feeds them, the person who takes care of them and gives them comfort and plays with them. Those are all, when you walk out the door, what's the dog gonna do? Especially since they're pack animals. When you look at the canine issue, ancestrally, they are pack animals and you're part of their pack. And at the moment, you're the leader of this pack. And so you're going to influence their behavior dramatically, dependent on their constitution or where they're coming from, their root of their behavior. Does that begin the discussion pretty well?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's good understanding. For those who are maybe not familiar with how the organ systems work and that they are connected through the meridian points, and those are connected to specific organs, which are connected to behaviors, which are connected to so many different things. So it's a very intricate system, but I think once you understand, you really begin to learn exactly how all of those pieces get put together, which is again why I think it was such a benefit when I went through your training, was to actually learn that everything connects. The mind, body, and spirit, they're all connected into one unit, and when one area is off, it offsets the other. So in some ways, when you're dealing with the dogs that have separation anxiety, we know that those are emotional imbalances, and sometimes working from a physical aspect or something of that nature can help also bring that into balance. So let's go ahead and start. So what we're working with here is Nancy and Amy wrote an article, and I am actually going to put it in the comments section. Can anybody just give me a little thumbs up that you see that the link there in the comment section, just so I know that that you guys are out there and you have access. So if you could just give me a little thumbs up. And Marta Hine says, hi, Amy. Hi, Nancy. So some of your little followers. I see that there are people out there. So, okay, Marta, thank you very much for letting us know. So what we've done there is attach the article that you had written. So if anybody wants to read that, that's available for you. So let's go ahead and start with the, hi, Janet. Janet says, yes, she's was able to open the link and she sees the pages there. So thank you for letting us know. So let's go ahead and start with our first type. And so that would be, I think number one was based on fear. And so maybe you could give an explanation of how that works.
Well, fear is probably, that's the most extreme form of separation anxiety. The animal that is that kind of fear anxiety leads to very desperate things because it's based on survival. It's based deeply on survival. It's based on how the animal feels totally threatened, that their lives are in jeopardy when you walk out the door. That's how, so they have nothing to lose. They're going to just react. If you have other animals in the home, the problem with that situation with a high fear animal is that they could hurt either themselves or the other animal and they get so desperate. So we're looking at, because fear is related in Chinese medicine with kidney, we're looking at this very basic source qi, which is survival qi, which is the original qi of the animal. And qi, by the way, is life force, life-promoting energy in the dog and the human and anything living, actually. We are looking at an animal who needs to be balanced in a number of different ways. This is a complex. This needs behavior desensitization programs. This needs different kinds of nutrition because it's very high energy, looking at a calming technique with food, with nutrition, is using cooling food. In Chinese medicine, we looked at, that level of heat in that animal, bringing it down, and freshwater fish is probably the most cooling of all foods for the animal. And letting them know that they feel it's not just a level of insecurity, it's more than that. It's a total threat to their existence. Do you want to add?
I'm going to skip ahead to the points, and we're not going to mention a lot of points because they're on the charts, but when you get your charts and download those, kidney 3 you'll see is in the inside of the hind leg, at the very thinnest part of the hock. So that it's such an easy point to find, and it's a very powerful point for helping to balance and stabilize the qi energy of the kidney meridian. It's absolutely wonderful point. And to add to that, when you press there, because it's so thin, you want to go very, very gentle pressure, like a pound worth of pressure. If you put your finger on top of your eye and press until you feel it, which doesn't take much at all, that's the amount of pressure. And your animal will always let you know if they would like more pressure, less pressure, by either moving in or moving away from you.
Yeah, acupressure points. I have found when working with my own animals and specific things, looking for acupressure points, particularly when you're working off your charts, because you guys have such great charts. It really kind of just like when you're trying to find it, a lot of times I think you're running across those points and you're like, I'm not quite sure, but you always feel like a little divot or a little bump or a little valley or something, and then it's just like, yeah, there it is. So for those people who have never worked on the acupressure for their dogs, working off those charts are great, and it's a very subtle feeling. You got to be like, the lighter your touches, the easier it is to find. I found for myself in working with that.
Really good. And if you can stay out of your head and not be thinking about where is it.
It's very true. I'm always looking for the stomach 36 when my dogs are vomiting. So I'm always like, oh no. So, but anyways, so those are good points for fear dogs, because certainly, fear does create that escalated, when dogs are in fear, they're in that, kind of that escalated, kind of crazy sense of it. And so certainly, them hurting themselves or other dogs and things of that nature are very good points. The second type of anxiety that you had mentioned was for timid dogs, which is a little bit different than fear. And so how do people generally tell the difference between those behaviors?
Well, the timid dog is one that cowers, one that hides behind your legs, that his tail is tucked, and that's the dog that doesn't feel very secure on this earth. And so we look to the stomach and spleen, which sounds funny from a Chinese medicine point of view, but that is where we know more about the grounding of the animal. Timidity usually, not always, but usually shows that the animal doesn't feel secure on this earth. And so what we need to do is find a way to help them ground. And there are specific points, acupressure points and techniques to help them feel more self-confident, some more ability to manage themselves. Because when you walk out the door, this animal doesn't feel as if they belong there. And they're the kind of, and they also usually have more of an oral reaction. That's one of the ways you can tell if they start chewing on your grandmother's favorite antique chair that you happen to have, or your favorite shoes. That will most likely be, you combine the idea of the timidity with the idea of chewing and eating and trying to, orally satisfy themselves, then they are going to be the ones that need that. When you looked at the article, you'll see the acupoints for the timid, anxious dog. And you want to give them a grounding and a base for it. And in terms of food and in terms of helping them get through this, you might want to try 2 to 3 meals a day. The reason being is that they don't want to be, you don't want them being concerned. The small meals, they definitely, Nancy just said, yes, small. And the idea is, yes, indeed, make them smaller meals. Because the smaller the meal, then they can anticipate the next meal, the next meal, the next meal. This will, and you're going to provide it, but try to put yourself away from that dog when you're feeding, actually. Don't make it a big deal that you're doing it. There has to be some behavioral aspect related to it, and probably behaviors such as yourself, Christine, could help them with that. We're not behaviors, but we do know a lot about Chinese medicine. So
right. And so for the timid dog, we also would be looking, as you mentioned, is like nourishing the spleen. And so that would be based on sweet foods, such as like carrots and squashes and things of that nature. And so for anybody who is interested, I'm just going to do a little side thing. Off of my website on a naturally balanced dog, there's a couple of pages. One is called the Yin Yang Dog. The other is Food and Moods. And so some of that helps to relate to some of the things that we're talking about. So for example, when you're looking up, fear dogs, they'll be, it'll be kind of correlated with, fear, the organ system, and the type of foods that you can add to your food, to your dog's meals to help balance them out from that standpoint as well. So this is a great cross because again, we always look at multi-layering. So if you're working from a behavioral standpoint, you're working with the acupressure points for those energetics. And then you're certainly feeding a diet that helps to support those particular personality types. All these are going to help move you to the direction of resolving your dog's issues. And so with that being said, our third one was the chaotic dog. And so I think sometimes some of these behaviors and what you're describing goes beyond just separation anxiety, but as it leads to the dog's personal temperament and personality, the way that they are as well. So I think that the points that you're talking to can also be applied whether there's separation anxiety or not. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, the chaotic dog is more the dog that when you come home, he's exhausted. He's been restless. He's been running around looking for you. We happen to have one of those. He happens to be a mini dachshund. He'll run around looking for Nancy no matter what, no matter even if I'm here. He does not feel protected, and he does not feel like he thinks the world has come to a complete chaos because Nancy's not here.
And there's a story to that too. So I find it interesting. He was adopted from the shelter in Denver, and at age 6. And when we came to the shelter to see him, the helper came in with him, carried him in, and put him on the floor in front of us. And he just sort of curled up. Aww. And so I just sat down on the floor with him and scooted him a little bit over to me. And I think that he was so traumatized from being not having, he was half his weight now, he's only 10 pounds. He was 5 pounds. He was scared to death to be in the shelter, and there's nothing that's going to change that for him. So it's interesting. Even later in life, a situation can arise that will change a personality base.
But not this dachshund, I'll tell you. His name is Cooper, and he had been pre-named as Mini Cooper because he is a tiny little fella. But he was, this points to nutrition in the sense that he was starved. He looked like a little crab. He was totally arched, and he literally fell over. He was so starved. So just feeding him, anything practically, but in this case, you want to feed grounding foods. You want to feel small meals consistently and grounding, making sure that they're, and so I would look on Christine's site to look for what that looks like in terms of food.
Mm-hmm.
That would be, so the chaotic dog you have, per your article, is in regards to balancing the liver.
Exactly.
And so for grounding, those would be sour foods. So that would be like apple cider vinegar. If you guys, you can sometimes add a little apple cider vinegar in, make ice cubes, balance it out with some water and stuff like that, like a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, stir it, fill up your little ice cube trays. And then if you have dogs that like ice cubes, that's one way of kind of just adding some apple cider vinegar, which has so many other benefits, but
yes.
yeah. And then, not that we would feed our dogs crab apples, but crab apples is very sour. You think of those sour, those things that just make your face get, puckery. But so those are some foods that we'd be able to add into their dish as well. And so
I've used it with just putting it in a couple of drops in the water bowl, and I haven't had a dog refuse it at all. They do seem to like it when it's in a diluted form, and it is, as you said, Christine, so good for them in so many ways.
Yeah, it's got a lot of benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what are some of the acupressure points that you would use for a chaotic dog?
Well, I'm going to go back 2 seconds to the idea that we're looking at liver, because liver is in charge of all of the emotions. And so the chaotic animal needs a general approach more so. Where is that? I don't see the chart on there at the moment, but we will, I think. Did they skip that? Oh, here it is. Yeah, it is on there. And what we're looking at, we have to support liver, and one of the best points is the liver 3. It's the original, it brings original chi to the whole body. It brings up it's kidney chi, but it's liver chi, and supports the liver in a more rounded way. The other thing we want to do is have the animal feel their inner and outer relationship, that they don't have to act out. They can stay within their bodies. So we're looking at 2 points, by the way, those 2 points in particular. We have them here and there, are the inner and outer gates, which helps the animal feel as if they're okay. They're right here. They're fine. They're both inside and outside. Okay.
It helps them bring them back into a center point of their brain. It helps all that chaos going on out here. It just kind of helps, bring them in to a nice harmonious moment. And the more you stimulate those points, hopefully the longer that chaos. But certainly there are, with the acupressure, again, utilizing food. And then I'm sure that there are also some herbal remedies and things of that nature that can help with chaotic dog, which is, a common, I think, is kind of a common behavior that you see with dogs that can get hyperactive. But with that being said, there's always that part that you have to kind of always look at of the how the humans interact with their dog and what creates those behaviors in some cases. So I think sometimes chaotic households create chaotic dogs.
Well, in this case, I think this poor dog was left according to the Humane Society, he was left in a crate for like 14, 15 hours a day. So,
Yeah.
by his
Yeah,
limits.
that's
The thing to remember is we're talking about pack animals,
yes.
and they're deeply pack. I mean, they're ancestral. We go to a domesticated dog, and suddenly we assume that they're not pack animals, but they are. And so these behaviors are based on the fact that they are pack animals. And when we, their protectors, their feeders, their everythings, walk away, this is frightening. This is painful. This is stressful.
Yeah.
So we have to look at it from their perspective. And do you want to move on to the last one so we make sure we
Yeah, sure. Yeah, right. So then the last one, yep, the last one that we have. Yep.
you take an animal that is feeling defenseless, and it could be because they're old, it could be because they're injured or they have a disease or they've been abandoned too many times and they just have kind of given up, but they're defenseless. So there's a number of reasons for that defenseless dog. But the sad part is that they really don't feel as if they can take care of themselves at all. The threat is not to their existence alone, because some of them have already given up to some degree, but it's more that they can't react to anything that's going to come at them. So say you have another dog in the house that has fear aggression, put that in there, and you've got a defenseless dog, you've got a very dangerous situation. I mean, that could be
Yeah.
a huge danger. So you need to set up some situation in which you're comforting. By the way, I wanted to mention about the chaotic dog. Before you leave the house, about a half an hour before, do this session, because that will help them settle just enough to say, oh, I'm okay. And in fact, I would do that with the fear aggression, the one we have set up, and I would do that with the timid dog, because you have to build confidence there and a sense of grounding.
And how frequent would you be doing acupressure for your animals? So if you have any of these types of dogs, what is the frequency that you would do acupressure to help balance that out?
I
Is
would
that something they would do every day, like before you leave, or once a week, or how would you recommend people utilizing acupoints to help balance?
There are different philosophies. There are different philosophies. And for instance, in Toina, which is acupressure massage, which is the one that we're recommending more for the defenseless based dog that feels that they can't manage anything and they're just going to essentially go away in their world. We go with the Toina, which is you can do it for a number of days consistently, and then go to alternate days if it looks like there's improvement, and then even further out, but then take care of a maintenance every third day or so.
Right.
In terms of the
Yeah.
other ones,
I really think if you start out maybe for the first 3 days doing it every day and then give it a day's rest and watch how your dog reacts. It's easy to say every third day, but it's really better if you pay attention to what your animal's doing and how they're responding to it and then adjust accordingly. A lot of times you'll get see an improvement or a change. And the change might not be to the positive, what we would consider positive, but just keep going with it too. There's
Yeah, because sometimes it could be a little discomforting for a dog that has been living in that kind of, particularly like, rescue dogs and things like that. You've seen some, pretty horrific situations for some of these animals. And then you start to make these changes, or maybe you're utilizing, acupressure points or, food therapies and other things that help to balance them, out, whereas they don't know how to deal with that new emotion that's coming in. And so sometimes I think you see things become a little rocky
Mhm.
before it starts to smooth out a little bit, just because they need to adapt to
What
what their the new norm or their new feeling of what it is that they're experiencing. And so, you know, I notice that, like, if I'm using acupressure along with maybe something like you know, aromatherapy, or if you're using, you know, essential oils and things like that, it usually, you see, it usually takes a couple of days before uh, you know, before you start seeing them, like, ah, you know, you
exactly.
see that relief of that, you know, that new. And I think as a trainer, working with dogs of stress frequently in families and stuff like that, um, I always watch for that moment. Like, you could really see where there's a switch that
Mhm.
changes in the dog. It's just like all of a sudden you see that, and then you just switch, you know, in the dog. And I think it's so important that in that moment that you allow the dog time and being quiet and allowing them to emotionally feel what it is they're experiencing without interrupting it, you
Mhm.
know. So, and I think, you know, using massage and acupressure is a very gentle and quiet way to approach a lot of these types of dogs. So, yes. And then again, yeah, definitely with adding food. And again, we're just talking about multi-layering there, tends to be very beneficial. And so, any other points on that last dog that we were talking about? We were talking about cooling. Were we talking about cooling foods there, or
Yeah, well, that's more comfort foods.
comfort foods?
And, you know, what's a dog comfort food? I'm not sure for
Hot
exactly
dogs,
what it is. Yeah,
treats.
hot dog.
Yes.
Cheese. Our guys love cheese. Um, but we're going to look at the points. The basic why we are showing that it's more using the what we call the bladder meridian, which is on the top line of the dog, and then the it's non-invasive. It's very gentle, and you can do it slowly and smoothly and sweetly and lovingly. And then come up. You can also come up with your thumb, the soft tip of your thumb, to the Bahui point. Now, the Bahui point is an interesting point in Chinese medicine. The Bahui point on the human is where our fontanelle closed on the top of our head, whereas on the dog, it's right at the sacrum. It's between the hips, and it's where you don't feel any spinous processes sticking up. It's kind
And
of
it's where every dog loves to be scratched.
yeah. It's
Exactly.
known as
Everybody likes, you know, you never would. I got one dog that if you start scratching in that area, she's like dancing around, trying to get right into the right spot. And
it's
I don't think that there's not a dog out there that doesn't like that spot rubbed.
yeah, that's a feel good point. And so even with all the other ones, if you wanted to add the Bahway point at the end, that's a feel good point for the dog.
Yes.
So it is we asked our professor, why is the point here and it's back there for a dog? His first reaction was a very typical Chinese reaction, which was, I don't know. He shrugs his shoulders. And then he came back a couple of days later and we went back to class and we're in our regular sort of homeroom. And he said, we can tell you. He said, when a dog is eating, or a horse is eating, or a cat is eating, that is what's closest to heaven. That is so they're closest to heaven. They're happy. So that
It's
was
a
a
perfect point.
kind of Chinese response to that, which really helped, gave a giggle. But hey, there's truth to it. I don't know if
Right.
I don't know if he made it up or not. The only I,
I think he had to think about it for a little bit, and he kind of came up with an answer for you. So that's good. So I want to thank you, Amy and Nancy, for coming and joining me today. It's a great topic. I know that the link, Brenda mentioned that the link is not part of Facebook, but certainly you could do a copy paste into a URL and it'll take you to the article itself. Again, my name is Christine. I'm with the Naturally Balanced Dog. If you're visiting today, please like the page, come back. We come on every Wednesday night at 5:45. We bring in a guest that talks about topics in regards to dogs. Other than next week, it will be on Thursday and not Wednesday. And I will be talking to Krista from Pug and Hound. And we will be talking about vaccines versus titers and the immune supplements that will help support the immune system. And so again, thank you very much for joining us today. Again, my name is Christine with A Naturally Balanced Dog. And if you have any interest in finding out more about foods that you can add, jump on over to the website. You can always contact me through either Facebook Messenger and or email. I'm sure Nancy and Amy can also be contacted off of their website. Do you have a particular way that you prefer to
There's
contact?
a form on the website, and you can use that. You can also just write to Tallgrass at animalacupressure.com.
Yeah, and check out their resource page where they have their the book. I can't say how much I love that book. I wish I would have grabbed it, but on my book, I've got like every page with a little tab in it, so I can quickly get to. It's a great reference book for anybody who is interested. And those charts are great, so I recommend anybody to head on over there. So again, thank you, everybody. Thank you. Oh, you got your little guy right there.
Yes, he gave a little bark, and I wanted to make sure everything was okay. This is
He looks like a dapple.
Pardon me?
They call him, is it a dapple?
Yes.
Yeah.
A dapple. They got the little speckles. He's a cutie. Look at that nose. Wait.
Well, he's 11.
Schnauz, who's been bugging me this whole time. Look at that schnauz.
That's a no.
What do you see? Yeah.
Very nice.
All right, you guys. Thank you all so much for joining. We'll have a good night. We'll see you next week.
Thank you very much.